Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, our special guest is Nathan Gillette. He is the owner-operator of NRG OPS. How are you doing today, Nathan?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's good to talk to you. I know we've been trying to sync this up for a while, and I can't wait for people to hear more about your shop and all the cool stuff you're doing.
I can't wait either, man. I'm excited.
So tell us how, when, and why NRG OPS opened its doors.
So to get that, we're going to go back a little bit in time. I actually started at NRG OPS when I was working with Wellside Sherman Factory in 2018. I was producing their WTF Flex Fuel V2 kit for them. I actually made those for the company and sold them to the company. Is kind of a way for the company to make some money and then try and make some money on the side. And then basically I had to have a legit business to do it, right? Because I was selling to a legit company. And so I started a company, in the background to do that. And then basically as time went on, I kind of started coming up with some other ideas, like the really popular MyVec extension. Everybody was doing the old cut and splice the wires.
Right.
And that's got to be an easier way to do this. So in 2020, when WTF decided to close, things were kind of slowing down. Right about the time Corona started and everything, I decided to purchase a lot of their intellectual property, plus keep the intellectual property I already had, like the Flex Fuel kit, the MyVec extension, and some other stuff. And because I wanted that to be available to the community, like the under trace was a huge one that WTF sold, and I didn't want people to lose that. So I bought that IP out from them and basically decided to go solo, open my own company to the public, and make it my primary job.
That's awesome. And then it just took off from there.
Yeah, I've been trying to grow it. It's been a crazy couple of years because I literally went solo the month coronavirus hit, and that led up to a whole bunch of challenges, and then we've been fighting supply chain issues for the last couple of years,
right?
And all of this kind of stuff, and so some projects have to get shelved, and other stuff has to get pushed to the forefront, and so we've been trying to work through that, but it was really hard to basically start the company, for the most part publicly, right during a pandemic,
Especially when, it sounds like you pretty much went 0 to 100.
Yeah, kind of. Like I said, I was selling, the Flex Fuel kits at WTF. And then in January of 2020, right before the shop closed, I kind of released the Bluetooth version of the kit, which is what I sell now, because that's kind of what everybody was asking for. So, and then it was kind of like, okay, what else can I do? Okay, I need this and then this, and then I just, kind of keep adding the products.
Right.
We'll have some stuff coming on the way, so that's exciting too.
So what products and services does NRG offer right now?
So our most popular product is probably our 100% plug-and-play Bluetooth Flex Fuel system for the 4B11D. It's the only kit on the market that's true Flex Fuel and true plug-and-play. Most other kits, this isn't a stab or anything, but they're gauges, and so you have to install a gauge, and then it plugs into tell the ECU what to do. So it kind of depends on what you want. Personally, I don't want the extra gauge. I just check my phone when I need to, and it's great. Our MyVec extension, has been really popular. Again, like I said a second ago, there's no more cutting and splicing and soldering. A lot of people do it because it's cheap, but there's a lot of people that don't know how to solder or spending $30-$40 on a decent soldering iron and everything, and plus all the parts to do it. Like, it's
right.
cheaper to buy the extension. It's plug and play. It's reversible. And then we've got our full tuck kit, which is an expansion on the MyVec extension. So the MyVec extension pulls that wiring off the top of the valve cover for guys that want to remove the factory cover and do like coil plate covers or powder coat the valve cover or whatever. The full tuck gets the wiring off the top of the fuel rail and intake manifold and kind of tucks it behind. So that's been really popular. And then our under tray for sure. That's super popular as well. We sell a ton of those. They're stronger than OEM. They're not going to fall apart is like OEM is. They're not plastic clips. It's bolted up. It's lighter than the aluminum options out there. And then it's flexible, so it's not going to bend and kink if you hit something. So that's been really popular over the last few years. But we do offer a few other things that a lot of guys don't know too much about. We've got 10 micron inline filters for the guys that do Walbro fuel pumps or large fuel pumps that delete the factory fuel filter. Our 10 micron is a stainless steel cleanable filter assembly. We use all spin-on EFI fittings, no clip-on anymore, which is really great for getting a secure connection to the fuel rail and the hard lines and stuff like that. We've got EVS harnesses for EFR turbos. So those use I think it's Paraberg is the brand, boost controller mounted on the compressor cover, and they come with a really short, like 2-inch adapter. And so some of that wiring can get really tight in there. So we actually offer, I think it's like an 18-inch extension, and it's all braided just like all of our products. So it looks great. And it's all plug and play, no cutting, splicing, anything like that. We have a bunch of other products too. And, another thing a lot of people don't know about us is we can sell most major brands. Just like most other shops, we do have accounts and can get, a lot of your favorite name brand parts. And we love helping guys out with that just as much as we do selling our own personal products.
That's awesome, man. So what about, I've seen someone asking on Facebook about the turnaround time on the under trays. What's the current turnaround time?
So usually our ship time is about 3 days. We tend to, like our website, we try and be really, really good about inventory. There's been some companies, not to name names in the past, that have had stuff in stock and guys don't get it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months ever, whatever, And we don't want to be that. We've seen that in the community too many times. So we're really good about trying to keep our product inventory on the website accurate. So if it's in stock on the website, you're generally going to get it within 3 days. Or not get it within 3 days. I'm sorry. We're going to ship it within 3 business days.
If it's on the website, then you have it on the shelf. It's not like someone orders it and it has to be made.
Yes, correct. If there is anything like that, it's noted in big bold right at the top of the product page. But that's really rare. Generally, if we need to make something, we pull it out of stock and try and put an ETA on there instead of hey, you can order it and you might get it this time. We're rather people know it's out of stock than try and build it to order.
Yeah.
So like all of our trays, I try and keep in stock. Our Myvec is mentioned, all that stuff is in stock. Unless we're really busy holiday weekends, unfortunately being small and somebody's sick, things like that can kind of delay shipping times.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's more than 3 or 4 days, business days, we usually reach out with an email and explain why and, anything like that. But yeah, we try not to sell it from our website if it's not on the shelf.
That's awesome, man. That's becoming so rare. I'm sure in this industry, so it's good to see that, if you say you got it, it's on the shelf. It doesn't have to be made.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, we see it a lot now where guys are either just drop shipping, and again, there's nothing wrong with that, right? And there's some other companies that have had their own products that they make and put it on the shelf, or they put it on the website and it's not on the shelf, and we just don't agree with that, man. We want you to know that if you buy it, if it goes through on our website, it should be right there on the shelf, and if not, we're going to reach out and talk to you about it. We're not going to hide behind it. We're up front, but yeah, 99.99% of the time, if you can order it on the website, it's in stock and ready to go. So
that's awesome. So what products and services do you hope that NRG OPS will offer in the future, or do you already have in the works?
So, well, that's an interesting one. I know a lot of guys don't want to hear it, but Subaru. We've got a couple good friends that are big in that scene, doing some of their own strap stuff. And, we can't be a one market company if we want to survive, right?
Right.
So we want to get into that. There's some stuff there I think we can do and do really cool with. But that is by no means saying that we're not going to keep expanding on the Mitsu stuff. That's what we love. That's what we know. We're always looking for new products that the majority of the people that are wanting and isn't available. I mean, that's where a lot of our products, the MyVec extensions, the Tuck kits, the Bluetooth Flex Fuel, that's where a lot of that stuff came from is, you're finding that for 10 years, people have been cutting and extending this MyVec harness when we can just make a plug and play option and, make it easier for everybody and nobody else is doing it. That's where we like to do, and we do have, some Mitsu stuff that's coming out. We just, got some fog light deletes for the Rally Art made, which nobody's ever done really before, and we think that's cool because the Evo 10 had a factory delete option, and the Rally Art sometimes gets left out of what the Evo gets.
Definitely.
So we've got those actually on the shelf. We've got to make a product page for them, so expect that soon. I'm prototyping a splitter for the Rally Art, same reason. I mean, the Evo 10 has a ton of options from different brands and lips and stuff like that. The Rally Art just kind of feels a little left out. So I'm actually prototyping that right now. So that's pretty cool. So we are still expanding the Mitsubishi stuff. But, like I said, we do plan to go a little bit towards Subaru too. I don't think it'll be quite to the extent as we do with Mitsubishi, just because that's where our heart lies. But, we do need to branch out a little bit if we want to survive in today's market.
Definitely. And I agree. I do feel like the Rally Art stuff is definitely neglected in the industry.
Yeah, and I personally own a Rally Art, so I feel that, on a personal level, and as much as I've done with the community as a whole, Evo 10 and Rally Art and stuff, I don't want to discount the Evo 10 guys, but the Rally Art guys definitely get the short end of the stick because they didn't have the same bumper cover that even the base model had for, a number of years, so they were kind of weird middle child where the base model guys got a bunch of stuff because they basically got the same bumper cover across 4 different models. And then the Evo 10 was just so popular that a ton of people make stuff for it. And the Rally Art's like, well, here's kind of some stuff,
So why is it that you focus or we're focusing on the Mitsubishi stuff and are going to continue to, keep making Mitsubishi stuff?
So, the big focus on the 4B platform for me is that's just where my experience lies. I've had a 4B11T car for almost 10 years now. I worked at Wasatch Turbo Factory, which was a 4B11T specific shop. And I've worked with many other 4B11T shops over the years with different projects and things. So it's just, that's where my knowledge is. I mean, 10 years ago, I bought this car not knowing much of anything about Mitsubishi outside of my experience as a 12-volt accessory installer years ago in the car audio world. And I had to teach myself a lot. I taught myself how the ECU, works and different things. And then, like I said, working with specific shops and being at Wasatch Turbo Factory for over 3 years, I think it was. I just, that's where my experience is. That's where my comfort zone is. So it just really makes sense to focus on that. But, I love other platforms too, but my heart just really lies with the 4B platform.
So that kind of ties into my next question is your background in Mitsubishi cars. Obviously, you own a Rally Art now. I assume you probably owned the Evo 10 at some point. So, what other Mitsubishis have you had?
So I've actually only had the Rally Art.
Oh, wow.
Well, I guess my wife has an Outlander Sport, 2019, which I don't know if you know, the Outlander Sport is based on the naturally aspirated Lancer platform.
Yeah.
So suspension and engine and trans and a lot of that stuff transfers over. So that's the other Mitsubishi I've had. I've never actually owned an Evo 10. I've driven hundreds of them, you know what I mean, over the years.
Yeah.
But I've never actually owned one. So as I mentioned, I bought my Rallier Sportback. I actually have the hatchback in 2012.
I love the hatchback.
It's almost 500 horsepower on a dyno jet on ethanol. It's a stock long block. Stock cams, everything has just had a timing chain done because the 2010s had the early timing chains. It does have a built SST. Actually, in 2014, I had my first SST built by a shop that messed it up. I won't name any names there. People who know me know what's going on. And I was stuck between the tuner telling me it was the trans and the shop that built the trans telling me it was the tune. So that's really where I started teaching myself about the ECU, the TCU, teach-ins, SST firmwares, you know, those type of things. And then in 2016, I sent my trans to Cosmic. They fixed it. I had the car retuned by TJ at WTF in 2016. And man, I mean, it was night and day. You know, the car was running great. The trans is still, I mean, to this day, that's what, 6 years ago now, and it still works great. I love it. But in 2017, I was starting to look for a new job, and kind of make a long story short, I moved from Michigan to Utah to work for Wasatch Turbo Factory under TJ, and that's where I continued to work with mainly the 4B11T platform and started making the products and, you know, learning and teaching myself things, and now here we are.
That's awesome. So I am curious, though, because I did own a 2015 Outlander Sport for a while with the 4B11. Can you use the flex fuel kit on the naturally aspirated 4B11?
So I've never actually looked into the wiring. There is a company that claims they had flex fuel support for the naturally aspirated generation of the 4B11, 312. I never looked into how they were doing it because it was, if it was truly happening, I like I said, I'm not going to say for sure or not. I'm pretty sure it was, but it was really custom ECU stuff.
Oh, okay.
You know, like in the Evo world, we have Tefra, right? Tefra made the V3 for the Evo 10. That's true flex fuel, and the Rally Art as well. But he doesn't really do anything for the naturally aspirated stuff. So this stuff was, you know, supposedly made. There was supposedly flex fuel for it. I would assume it was done the same way as Tefra, and that in that aspect, in theory, the flex fuel kit should work. But like I said, I've never confirmed it just because, you know, this isn't to hate on the naturally aspirated guys, but that is a little bit smaller of a market.
For sure. Yeah.
And I know turboing them has gotten really popular in the last 4 years or so. I mean, I know guys have been doing it longer than that, but it's really picked up lately. And but I haven't seen much about guys doing flex fuel on them. The company that was offering flex fuel on them, I don't think he's tuning anymore. So I can't say too much on that.
Okay. So if somebody out there, they have a 4B11T powered car and they want to make some power, but they don't know where to start, what advice would you give them?
With anything, any platform, but, you know, I mean, we're talking about the 4B platform here. First thing is maintenance. Make sure all your maintenance is done. Make sure, you know, that, you know, as, you know, especially SST cars, you know, that's critical, because a well-maintained car, we all know, is going to last way better than a car that's not maintained.
Definitely.
And the second thing is a really good tuner, especially for the SST. The SST is super critical when it comes to tuning. There's very small things that can make them act kind of funny when it comes to tuning. So those are my two big things. But from there, you know, the tuner really should be able to point you in the right direction for what meets your goals and the parts that they prefer. Because some tuners like thick injectors, some tuners only like ID injectors, right? Like, they're going to have their experience and they're going to have what they know works best for them. And I always am a firm believer in, you know, if it's a quality tuner and they have the reputation, you know, you should listen to what they say. But, you know, to get a little bit more detailed from there, you know, if you're starting stock, just go with your basic bolt-ons and a tune. The Rallier, that'll usually net you, I want to say it's like 40 to 50 wheel horsepower. On the Evo 10, it's 60 to 70, sometimes a little more. I mean, it depends on weather, elevation, what mods you do. From there on the Rallier, I recommend turbo and fuel system upgrade. You can run the stock Evo turbo and the stock Rallier fuel system because they are exactly the same. And that'll obviously net you, Evo 10 MR power levels. For the Evo, I like to do the fuel system and the flex fuel. And then, I always say plan ahead on the fuel system if you don't plan on staying with the stock turbo. You know what I mean? If you know, hey, right now I'm making 300 wheel on a Mustang dyno, and ethanol is going to net me 340 on my Evo 10, but I know my goal is 450 on this dyno, definitely plan ahead because there's nothing worse than buying injectors twice at the price that they are.
Definitely, yeah.
From there, it's really turbo and cams until you start reaching the limits of things. Like I said, you look at my card on a Mustang dyno, it's 425 stock cams, stock engine. I have a small turbo. I have a 20G. Nothing crazy, just running ethanol and full bolt-ons. That's almost 500. I think it's like 490 on a dyno jet if you do the conversion. And that's pretty minor work other than the trans, So the platform's capable. I mean, I've got a buddy that has 190,000 miles on a stock block Evo 10 GSR, and his car makes over 100 horsepower more than mine. You know what I mean? But he puts a lot of maintenance into it. He makes sure it's taken care of. It's tuned really well. And, you start getting into that level where you're talking 650 on a dyno jet. And, you're starting to get, it's doable and it can be reliable, but you're starting to get to where, your next set of upgrades are going to be really expensive because it's an even bigger turbo and, an engine and all that kind of stuff.
So speaking of, what, in your experience, what and where are the power limits of the 4B11T?
Yeah, so on a stock 5-speed, 5 manual trans, GSR basically, you can see 600 horsepower wheels on a dyno jet with on ethanol with a good tuner, for sure. There's a lot of guys that go over it. Like I mentioned, I have a personal local friend whose car does over 600 on a dyno jet, has 190,000 miles on it. And he did the timing chain because it's a 2008. He did cams and springs just because he wanted to rev it out and get a little bit more power up top. Maybe he did rod bearings around 150,000 miles right before he fled across the country. But torque at this level on a dyno jet is 400 to 450, and that's really where we want to talk about, power levels with the torque. You start getting 450, on a dyno jet, and you're really getting to the limits of what the rod's like and stuff like that. The big thing with these engines is they don't like low-end torque. You can get that 400 to 450, up top a lot easier than you're going to get it at 3,500 RPM. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with the stock SST, because we do need to talk about that if we're going to talk about the 4B platform. Again, it's really about torque. Most people say around 350 wheel torque. That's the rule of thumb. But it truly, truly depends on the tuner and the condition of the trans. I mean, I've seen stock SSTs do about 430, 435 wheel torque on a stock SST before. And trust me, that's crazy. I know a couple cars that have done that, but I've also seen them slip at 320 torque. I've seen them slip stock, I mean, it's just like anything, the condition and how well it's tuned is really going to play a role in that. But yeah, so, talking torque, I'm usually dyno jet members 4 to 450 on the engine and about 350 on the SST is a good rule of thumb. That's usually going to get you for an SST for maybe a little over 500 on a dyno jet for horsepower. Like I said, that'll get you a little over 600 on a dyno jet for the engine at the 450 torque, 4 to 450.
So the SST seems to be, a weak point of the platform if it is equipped. I've seen multiple people on the groups talk about either their SST going out or what have you. So if that same person that was listening that, is thinking about trying to make power with the 4B11 and they're thinking about maybe looking for a 5-speed car or jumping to a WRX or jumping to a different platform altogether just because of that SST, what would you say to them?
So, there are quite a few, obviously nobody talks about the good things their car does, right? They always talk about the failures. So that definitely makes the forefront. The SST is quirky. There's no denying it. They do need a little bit more maintenance. That you need to have good driving habits. You need to have good tuning. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that will play into how the SST does, how long it lasts. But there are factory defects like the shift fork. The glue fails, and it doesn't matter how well you maintain it, that can happen. I've seen cars last 200,000 miles. I've seen cars last, 20,000 miles.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it just depends, right? But we see that with engines too, right? If an engine's tuned badly, it's going to last 5,000 miles. If an engine's tuned great, it's going to last 100,000 miles,
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of start with that. There are, and with nowadays, right? Like a 2008 Evo MR is old, right? Like, it's been possible that it's been abused or not maintained, and you're going to start seeing those issues creep up a lot more, right? But the wanting to jump to a different platform, man, that's a pretty famous question. You do see that a lot. The guys that have had the issues and they don't want to deal with it. I personally really like the SST a lot. I actually have a bad knee, so driving cars with really stiff clutches is hard for me. So I really love the SST in that aspect. And when it works, it performs great. I mean, it has its quirks, but it shifts really well when it works. And it's tuned right. It's fun. I actually really enjoy it. I know some people they don't feel like they connect with the car the same way as a manual. But I really think that's personal preference.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to why you want to get out of the SST. Some people, like I said, they just must have a manual trans. Even though it's a dual clutch and you can put it in full manual mode, it's just not enough. They need that interaction, right, with the car. And in that case, you're really not going to change their mind. And if that's what they want, hey, I get it, right? If it's the cost of the rebuild that wants to make people jump, it can be steep, but if you actually spread that cost over the ownership versus changing clutches on a manual trans, it's not as bad as it seems. You know what I mean? Especially if you're not doing the work yourself. If you're doing the work yourself, obviously that's a little bit different. But to pay a shop to do a clutch on an Evo 10,
it's not cheap.
Exactly, and if over 150,000 miles, you have to do it 2 or 3 times. 3 times you're getting close to what it costs to rebuild an SST, right? So there's kind of that to think about, right? And the SST definitely has the edge on. You're not losing boost between shifts, the shift speed, but most people look at the cost of ownership and how picky they are, which is understandable, in the stock form. There are some platforms these days, though, that even with just, stock full bolt-ons will put a hurting on an Evo. I mean, the Golf R platform is pretty neat. Again, they have it in a dual clutch, but I believe they also offer it in a manual, and they're pretty quick. And there's some other platforms too. I mean, you start looking at Audi and BMW and some of those cars, man. I mean, even if you look at some of the V8 American stuff, man, having a mostly stock car that makes over 500 to the wheels, you know what I mean? Like, it's nice. It sounds nice.
Oh, yeah.
For the amount of work, putting into, a car that originally made, 220 to 250 at the wheels, and you're trying to make 500 out of it, right? But on the other hand, dumping an Evo with an SST for a 2012 WRX or something like that might not be the right move, right? I mean, not to hate on the Subaru guys. I have a lot of Subaru friends. I love the platform in its own ways, but the WRX definitely has its trans issues, and we all know the famous Subaru had gaskets and stuff like that, right? So it's like, dumping this car and bailing on this platform that you feel is expensive to maintain or repair to get into another platform that's expensive or, it's going to have its quirks and failures.
Right.
It doesn't make sense, right? But, if you're getting into a platform where, hey, I can put in an intake and exhaust and a tune on it and make 530 to the wheels, and the car's barely modified, that's a little bit of a different story. So it really depends on what you want out of your car, the experience you want, what your goals are, and really what you're looking for.
Cool. Nathan, we gave the people on social media an opportunity to ask you some questions, and we got two. The first one, can we get all the details on the new SST Super Sport Supreme Flash?
Yeah, so looking at the questions here, they're basically the same question. The second question, I think, was what's the deal with the new SST 2.0 firmware, right?
Yep, that's it.
Yes, that's going to basically be the same thing. So I'm just going to kind of answer them as one. The new firmware kind of has two different names depending on who it is, right? But basically, we now have the ability to adjust certain parameters of the TCU. So far, there's a handful of options we've been playing with. The biggest, most popular changes are Instant Esport. So, on the SST car, you have normal sport and Esport mode. But to go to Esport from factory, you have to press and hold the switch for 3 seconds to go into Esport. You don't have to do that anymore. It's instant, just like going from normal to sport and back down. And the Esport while moving now, that's another big one. Before, you had to basically be stopped. You could creep real slowly and still go into Esport. Some guys didn't know that, but there is actually a speed limiter that was doing that. So we can now go into Esport while moving, which is great because you can be on the highway in normal mode with cruise control. And then if somebody wants to play, you can switch to Esport mode and have some fun on the highway without ripping your clutches, right? Another big one is Rev Hunt fixes for the Rally Art. And so what this is, we put the Esport Flash, on the Rally Art, right? Because the Rally Art didn't come with Esport like the Evo 10 does. And Esport adds quite a bit more clutch pressure over sport mode. So the problem is the Evo 10 SST and the Rally Art SST actually have different gear ratios. And so and there's a few other changes too, but that's the big one. Causes Rev Hunt and some low RPMs. You can kind of see the ECU and the TCU trying to figure out what the RPM the car is supposed to be at. So we can actually fix that. We can fix the Rev Hunt. This does fix there's a couple other quirks. There's some tables that we can do that fix, there's like a fourth gear shift flare that some cars get where, and I haven't seen it personally, but I know quite a few people that have had it. The car, I think it's going into fourth or going into fifth. I know it deals with fourth gear. There's a flare on the shift where it kind of acts like it doesn't quite want to grab. Part of the Rev Hunt fixes do fix that, which is great as well. So we're kind of eliminating those quirks of having the Evo firmware on the Rally Art TCU.
Okay.
We do have some clutch pressure adjustments now, which is, pros and cons, right? The ECU is still the most important, far more important for tuning, But, hey, sometimes, somebody just wants a little bit extra and they don't want to go through the whole logging and tuning process or taking their car to the tuner, or, hey, my clutches have worn out because I tuned my car 3 years ago and I'm just looking for a little bit of bump and pressure. We can adjust that and kind of do that without needing to actually adjust anything in the TCU, which is really great for some of the guys that are, making some power, or guys that are just like, hey, my car's stock, the SST just feels a little slushy. I just want a little bit more out of it. And then the other one that's been really popular is shift point adjustments. We've actually been doing mostly is lowering the shift points in S4 Auto mode, because S4 Auto mode, basically the car was designed just to shift, hold at 5,000 RPM and shift at around 7,000 RPM. That was its goal. So some people want to drive in auto mode, because, hey, man, you've had a 12-hour workday and you're just tired. You don't feel like thinking about what gear and RPM you're in, right? But you can't put it in auto mode, because then the car wants to hold at 5,000 RPM and it's 9 o'clock at night and you're waking up your whole neighborhood, So we actually were supposed to act more like normal mode. So we're a throttle-based position where the car tries to hold around 3,500 RPM. Actually, it's a little lower than that. That's where it likes to shift, is 35 to 38. And then the more throttle you give it, the higher that RPM is going to be, right? So that's been really popular. And I'll be honest, I was the first person who was skeptical of that. I'm just like, wow, just put it in manual mode, And then as I was playing with it, I drove around with it. And I'm like, okay, no, this is actually kind of nice. It's nice to drive this car and have the clutch pressure I want, but drive it kind of normally, There are some other things we are testing in the TCU as well. We don't want to get too much into it, but we have done a couple of things, like turning S-Port on within the actual rally art firmware. This obviously is another form of trying to fix the rev pump issues. But we haven't found an advantage for that over using the Evo firmware yet. So we tend to just stick to the Evo firmware and then do the rev pump fixes within that versus turning it on in the rally art. But we have done that. There's a few other things. We're currently testing launch control adjustments, which has been a big one for the SST, because the factory launch control is actually a throttle cut. So if you throttle cut it, it won't build boost on the line. And so that's where the spark cut patch with Justin, I was actually the first SST to ever do that on an SST car. I worked with Justin on that, and we were able to now build boost on the line, right? But the problem is you have to set it lower than the 5,200 factory launch RPM. And the closer you get to the factory launch RPM, the less boost you're going to kind of be able to make, because the throttle wants to close. So if we can start adjusting that launch control RPM, that means guys with bigger turbos should start being able to actually launch off the line. So we're kind of working on that. There are quite a few shops that have the ability to change these settings in person. But the big thing we have is the ability to flash the TCU remotely. So the guys that don't want to spend, I don't even know what it is anymore, $300-400 for the special TCU software, and then you have to have the ability to edit the files and stuff like that. The guys that don't want to mess with that or pay for that, we can actually do it remotely. We log into your PC, we set up the software on the pass-through CAN software, which is what everybody uses to flash the TCU up until the new firmware is kind of released. We can set all that up and flash the TCU anywhere in the world. I mean, we've done cars all over the world. So it's a really big for guys that can't get their car to a shop, live in the middle of nowhere, those type of things. It's been awesome working with guys all over the world on getting their cars updated and hearing how happy they are, when you're like, oh my God, it feels like a brand new car, Oh my God, I never thought I'd see the day that I could go into S-Port while moving and these things, so it's been pretty cool. Of course, though, if anybody has specific questions about what we can do or what's best for them as far as options and things like that, we're always glad to help them out, get them pointed in the right direction. We've got Facebook, Instagram, email, they can reach out to us anyway, and we would love to get them pointed in the right direction and figure out what's going to work best for them with their SST firmware goals.
So do you predict that, there's only one SST car that's ever been into the nines? Do you predict in the future that, this will help cars get a little quicker?
There are a few things I see in the TCU that I do think will help cars get quicker. I know there's a few guys that have been doing the Cyvex route because that has SST support, but you still have the factory TCU in there. And I'm not a huge standalone guy, so I don't know the specifics of how the Cyvex talks to the TCU or what it does. I do know there's some really cool stuff happening with that. Guys are getting some stock clutches to hold some decent power. with that. But I mean, you're talking about what, a $6,000 ECU. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there are some things in here that we're looking at that I do think will help push the platform. There's some tables in there that were discovered by the guys that kind of cracked the TCU that I think could help the SST. You know, I'd love to see I'd love to see Cosmic and those guys go 8. You know, I mean, they've been 11.4 so many times. They've had a run that was close to that was on track for 9.2, and they coasted for a 9.4. I think the car's got it, you know. But I would like to see guys, you know, start to close that gap too. You know, as you know, no offense to Cosmic and stuff, but if we can, you know, we want the platform to get pushed, right? You know, and people aren't within a second of them. You know, they're way out in front, and I'd love to see them make that gap bigger, but I'd also like to see people try and close that gap and,
absolutely,
and start touching 9s, you know. So I'd love to see it. I hope it does. You know, what we've found is the ECU tuning is still most superior for your clutch pressures, and there's just going to be limits within the trans. The trans can only make so much pressure. If your valve body's a little weak, you know, you can tell it to make all the pressure you want, but it's only going to make what it wants to make, right? You know, but there are some cars that obviously that, hey, we've got the ECU maxed out and we're just want a little bit more, and if the TCU has it in it, you know, these clutch pressure adjustments, bumping that up might get them a little bit of extra clamping pressure they need to get it off the line a little faster, and, you know, I'd love to see it. I really would.
Me too. I mean, yeah, like you said, I'd like to see at least somebody get a little closer, because the only way that we're going to keep pushing the platform is to, keep making the number one work for that first place spot.
Exactly. And, you know, I mean, even seeing, you know, having been in the SST platform for 10 years, seeing what it's come from back then to what it is now, you know, I mean, I remember when guys making 500 horsepower was almost unheard of, and the top power guys were making 500 Mustang dyno or whatever, and you know, getting low 11s or high 10s on an SST was impressive, you know, and I'd love to just see that keep going. You know, I love the platform, you know, both the 4B and the SST, you know, but I'm really hoping that this does start to open some doors, and you know, it took a long time, but you know, this might be that push we need to get the platform to the next step.
Yeah, let's hope. So what is NRG OPS goals for 2022? What do you want to get done by the end of the year?
Well, we actually just moved to a new shop at our local road course racetrack. We're super excited about that and to see what comes from that. You know, there could be some opportunities there, you know, working around shops that just work with race cars all day, being around race cars all day. You know, of course, I love the street platform and what guys do on the street, but we're car guys, man, and there's nothing like a true race car. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Well, you know, of course, like we mentioned earlier, working with some Subaru shops. To get them some parts they're looking for and wanting. I'm excited about that. You know, again, I know that's not Mitsubishi related, but you know, that is going to help the company grow. You know, even if it is a little bit out of my element. One of the things I've been contemplating is bringing back our non-Bluetooth flex fuel system. This would be similar to the WTF V2 kit I mentioned earlier. And, you know, I'd like to go back over other shelved ideas that I've had to see if there's anything that I can bring back up front and do. You know, I mean, I have a whole list of stuff that, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? You know, this would be cool. And they get shelved because you can't find parts, or, hey, I need to, you know, focus research on something else for a minute. You know, I'd really like to see if there's something there I can bring back up and, you know, see if there's something for the 4B platform that we could, you know, bring back out and say, all right, hey, we want to do this now, or now's the time to do it, you know. And then another big thing I really want to do, and we're getting halfway through the year, so it's getting a little hard, but I really want to work on a wholesale program. In the past, we've done small discounts for shops. It's just so hard because of how small we are.
Yeah.
Our margins aren't amazing. I know a lot of guys think we make a killing on some of these parts, and we really don't. A lot of guys don't see that those tub kits take 2 hours to make, and we sell them for what, $200, $220. You know what I mean? We make a lot of this stuff by hand, right? All of our wiring harnesses I hand crimp and solder and everything like that, and so it takes a lot of time, and so I'd like to work on some things that, we could do, because, shops reach out to us and, they, 8% really doesn't get them out of really wanting to sell stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And, I always tell guys, like, hey, here's the minimum advertised price. You can sell it for what you need, but there's a lot of guys that they don't want to sell it for more than I've got it listed for, because then they're not going to get the sale, right? So I'd really like to see if we can work on a wholesale program and try and get the brand out there a little more. Personally, my weak point is advertising, for sure. I'll admit that right now. With everything going on with the move, and then I actually recently was sick and some other things, I haven't updated our social media in like a month, and it's awful. I feel terrible, but, it's just trying to keep everything going on and work on some of this new stuff. Being small, it's hard. So that's what I'd really like to do. Like I said, I'm excited about the racetrack. Really like to see if I can get the brand out there, maybe work with some other shops and getting our stuff sold by them, and just try and grow it a little bit,
Definitely. So, kind of heading towards that direction, what events do you want NRG OPS or do you plan to attend in 2022 that people could come out and, talk to you guys about these cool parts that you're making?
So I don't really have anything specific planned. We actually just had a big event a couple weekends ago while I was sick, so I couldn't even go out there for that. There's a ton of Mitsubishis out there, so I'm really bummed. But being at the local racetrack, we're really wanting to get involved with things they have going on. We love supporting our local motorsports when we can. We see a lot of tracks dying left and right, and they need our support as a community, and I tell guys, hey, yeah, I know it costs money, but pay to spectate.
Right.
Pay to participate. Do these things. Hey, our local road course, we don't have a drag strip out here anymore. It closed a couple years ago, and our local road course is doing wheel racing on the front end. And, and I see a lot of guys talking about, well, it's not digs, I don't care. And it's like, yeah, but man, go support them. Put your car out there, or go spectate. Just turn out. If they see that people are turning out for the stuff, the push for them to build a drag strip is that much more,
Right.
They brought drifting in, and they brought a drifting school in this year, which is, it's cool, man. Like you're seeing a group of people that normally don't go to that type of environment, and they're out there having fun and bringing their cars and running what they got. And, a buddy of mine just built a drift car, and I'm so proud of him. He's got his own race car, I am all for supporting our local motorsports. Our local track actually has kart racing. They do amateur tracks. They have NASA. They have big events. We had the Pirelli World Championship out here a couple years ago. We've had the Nitro Circus Rallycross Championship out here. They had like a 100-foot jump they built for it. It was awesome. So just getting people out there to do that, it's what I really want to say. So I plan to try and attend things like that, I think, a little bit more, and just kind of network and talk to people, as much as I'd love to do some other things, I just really want to try and, over the next year kind of focus on, what we can do for the track and being at the track, And the other cool thing is if somebody wants to come out and chat with us and check out the shop or whatever, or just come check out the track, we don't mind people stopping by and seeing what's going on out there, Like I said, I'm all for bringing people out there. So if you are in Utah, Wednesdays are amateur track days for road course and autocross. They have NASA and HPDE once a month, drift events, roll racing, the karts, like I mentioned. There's actually a Oh man, I'm a local nonprofit that just started for veterans to get veterans on the track for free, which I'm really all about. And I've been wanting to team up with these guys. I just met them yesterday, and we've got some stuff in the works where they basically, they've gotten 10 different vets on the track. They cover the costs. So, if it's an amateur track day and you want to put your car on there and you're a vet and you just don't have the money or whatever, you can get up with these guys and they'll pay, they have it worked out where they can get you on the track. If you don't have a car, they actually got 2 cars recently donated, Miata and a CRX that they're going to build for the track.
Nice.
So they can actually get people out there who don't have cars yet or can't afford a car, but are veterans, So I'm really all about that. As a vet myself, I really get behind it, how many vets moved to suicide and things like that. I love this idea of trying to get racing into their systems to get their mind in a better place, right? So I know that's not quite an event, but I'm super excited about being out there. Yesterday was our amateur track night. They got 2 vets on the track. I went out there, met those vets, met the guys that started the nonprofit, and got to, see some cool cars, man. One of the guys had a right-hand drive RX-7 that's super, super clean. The other guy had an old 2-door Integra, super, super clean. I mean, these were super nice cars. They got to put them on the track, run them. We got to do some pictures and just meet and talk afterwards, and that's what I'm excited about, being at the racetrack is meeting these people, just talking cars, man. So, yeah, I mean, it's nothing event-wise specific, but really want to try and push these local, support these local track and events and stuff like that. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I wish we had more stuff like that around here. So
it's neat. It's really neat to see, and like I love going out there and even just sometimes, having my shop out there, I'll just roll down the road and check out the guys doing the autocross or the guys running on the track and it's awesome, man. I mean, even just to see these people go out there and just enjoy running what they have and not even competitively, they're just out there having fun.
That must be crazy to go to work at a racetrack every day.
I'm not gonna lie, there's some moments where even going there every day, you're still just like, wow, seeing some out there are so cool. Seeing the different stuff that people run, we do have spec classes out there, so there's a lot of spec Miatas and spec Zs, which are pretty cool. A lot of Porsche stuff out there. Some Lotus stuff. There's some pretty cool stuff out there, man. And seeing how these teams and shops operate, it's also really cool because it's just so different than how a street performance shop works. You know what I mean? So it's neat. It's really neat. We're really excited, and I really hope that helps. Like I said, I want to help our local track, support them by being out there and attending the events that they put on. But I also want to support, local racing and see where this grows the brand, right? Like, hey, who's to say that, the next platform isn't something or the next part isn't something for a Porsche? Who knows, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So, Nathan, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to for, helping grow NRG OPS or get it to where it is now?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'd be here all day. We've already been here a while, and I can't imagine how long it'd take me to list everyone. But of course, you guys, MitsuTimes.
Thank you.
Loving what you're doing. I was actually telling the nonprofit last night about you guys and how it's cool that there's just a place that all this stuff is logged. It's not going to get lost. You can search by, whatever parameters you want. It's great. My wife, for supporting me with starting this company, it's not easy to be a small business owner by any means. And really, without her support, it wouldn't be possible. My friends that have supported me and shared my company, I mean, it's, obviously, without them getting the word out, it doesn't, it wouldn't be here either. There's UMC, which is Utah Motorsports Campus. That's our local track. Them getting me a garage out there and allowing me to, put my equipment out there and do what I've got to do. Cosmic and the guys over there, they're a big part of what I do and stuff like that. There's, a lot of other guys, my buddy Vic, Alex, Colton, Brian, AK Racing, Miguel, and so many others that have helped me do what I do, and also I want to give a shout out to Racing for Tomorrow, which is that local nonprofit for getting vets on the track, Like I said, I just met those guys last night, and it touched me, deeply, like seeing what these guys are doing for our vets, and like I said, as a vet myself, that means a lot, and seeing how it's helped these guys and listening to these guys talk about how racing, saved them or got them better, these things for it. So
right.
Definitely got to give a shout out to Racing for Tomorrow. I do know they're talking about trying to expand to some other tracks. I don't know how all that works with a nonprofit, if they do chapters or what, I don't know, but definitely, want to, give them a little spot too. So check them out, especially if you're in Utah, and or somebody who wants to get involved with that and can maybe help with getting people on the track, love to see it.
Definitely. Well, Nathan, I want to say thank you for coming on as a sponsor for the website, man. It really means a lot to me. I know it, I know there's a lot of them, but, each one individually, the fact that we get to keep the site alive, it really, it makes, it enables my passion, and I really appreciate it for that.
Absolutely, man. I love it. Like I said, it's great to be able to have a place where we can have all this data. You can look up anybody, what they're doing, their times, who's got the fastest this or who's got the fastest that, or just, hey, I've got an Evo 10 with the 15G turbo. What are people running for times? How did they get it that fast? Here's the average, just having that data, is amazing, and a place that we can all put that place we can all share our passion, and I love the fact that you did the road course section. I know that's a little bit harder to do than the drag racing, but it's neat because we do want to, obviously that's part of the Mitsubishi heritage too.
Right.
And I love seeing that, just as much as I love seeing the drag racing. But it's great, man. The site's awesome. I love hopping on Facebook and, hey, what are people getting with times with this? And somebody just drops a Mitsu link, and it's just all there. You don't have to, go through the forum posts that are 10 years old at this point.
You don't have to dig through the old forum post.
Right. So, yeah, it's great that, I miss the forums days, don't get me wrong, but I love having a dedicated place just for this one thing, So it's awesome, man. We appreciate what you're doing for the community. Obviously me and my company are glad to help support that. It's great.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you're part of the team, and I hope that we can keep working together in the future, and hopefully we'll see some more times with your new SST work, and hopefully some road course times with your sweet under trays.
Yeah, another thing I actually just got, I want to say Greg Former is his name.
Formosa?
What's that?
Formosa?
He does circuit racing.
Yeah.
He actually just got to set my Evo 10 window vents, because a lot of the tracks he's running are front windows down, rear windows up. So I'm really excited to see what he thinks about those. I've got those on a few cars, and guys are really happy with them, how they perform.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah, I again, like going back to, I'm getting the under trays on the track, getting these window vents on the track. Hey, SST cars, if they need that extra clutch pressure, or, they want something specific for the track, I'd love to, work on that too. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the platform this year. I'm really hoping we see some nice new records. Yeah. I know it's kind of a slow start to the season, it seems, for racing, but man, I'm really hoping we see something, some change ups on the list, man, and see some guys start to really move up.
Definitely. When do you think, I like to ask this question just because it's fun, but when do you think there'll be a new number one on the SST list?
Oh man, I I hate to say it, but I don't know if it'll be for a while.
Yeah.
The only reason is the gap is so large.
Right.
I think it's 1.1 or seconds or something
Yeah.
like that. I could be
It's
wrong.
over a second, yeah.
I've checked. But I feel like it's 9.4 and 10.5. Might be 10.2.
No, it's 10.5.
Is it 10.5?
Yeah.
That's what I'd really like to see that gap close. I think the 10.5 was set by RP Customs, right?
Right.
And I think they've got the ability to close the gap. But on the other hand, I think Cosmic has the ability to go farther. I think that there's some things coming down the pipeline that might push that again. It's hard with the gap. 1.1 seconds at that level, it's hard to close that gap.
Oh, for sure.
So, I hate to say it, I don't think anybody will switch it up for a while. But I do hope that it closes a little bit, and I'd love to see RP. I think Nate is the guy out there.
Yeah, Nate Cracknell.
Love to see him, close that gap. But hey, like David, if you're listening, I also want to see the rally art back out there, and reset it.
We want to see the SST record reset, and we want to see the 15G record reset. David, get on
it. So does he hold the 15G record still?
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be kind of interesting too. I don't know what, like with his car now, I'm sure it could do it because it's all super gutted. When he did the 15G record, it was still glass and everything. Now it's all Lexan and everything like that. So it would be funny to see him slap a stock turbo back on that car.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And just see if he can annihilate his old record.
I'd like to see someone else like just take a stab at it because we see when it comes to Evos we see a lot of people push the 16G until it's absolute out of wind, but we don't see the 15G get pushed hardly at all.
Yeah, I don't know the stock 15G on an Evo 10 doing 10s is impressive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean? I don't know if there's much more in it, but it would be cool to see. Again, like I'd like to see some new names, start to creep up. I know there's been a few guys that have done a couple things in the last year or two that have really started to move up the list, and I know another one a couple people kind of talked about was the stock rally art turbo record. Because I want to say David holds that too.
I think so. We did have a 15T list at one point.
Yeah, I know somebody beat it with a upgraded Rally Art Turbo, so it's still a stock frame Rally Art Turbo, which is a TD04, which is still impressive. But, rebuilt, I think it was a Turbo RS Turbo. And I think that ended up technically setting the Rally Art stock frame record.
Gotcha.
There was a guy in Illinois, Kyle, I want to say he was getting close to the stock turbo record on the Rally Art. So, hey, maybe we'll see him get out to the track this year and reset. Yeah. But I hope RP Customs closes the gap. Their car seems to have the power to do it. If you look at numbers, it seems to have power. So I'd like to see that gap close. I'd like to see David, go for the 8s. And just really kind of push the platform. But we'll see, man. I really hope we see some stuff this season and see what guys can get out there and do. So if you're listening, race, submit your times, all that good stuff.
Yeah, don't be scared.
The more data we have and the more people we get on there, the tighter we make the community.
Right.
I love seeing guys that I've known for years pop up on there, or guys that I've never heard of pop up on there and be like, wow, like that's an impressive time, like it's great. It's great checking it and just seeing what people are doing.
Definitely. All right, Nathan. Well, I appreciate it, man, and hope to hear from you soon.
All right, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do for the community. It's great talking to you, and I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.